Book Buzz, HarperCollins Book Buzz. Check it out. Do-do-do, do-do-do. Book Buzz, HarperCollins Book Buzz. Brought to you by Library Love Fest.
Hi, everyone. I'm Virginia Stanley, Director of Library Marketing at HarperCollins Publishers, joined by my colleague.
Hi, Lainey Mays, Library Marketing Associate.
And we are so thrilled to have this really special episode of Door to Door. We are joined by editor and author, a unique relationship, which we're very excited to bring on camera. We've got Carrie Feron, Executive Editor, Senior VP, William Morrow and Avon Books. Carrie, you want to bring, hello, Carrie, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm so excited to be here.
We're so excited to have you. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with our special guest author today and to librarians about this really wonderful book in this recurring series. So, without further ado, we have Tamron Hall, author, journalist.
And here she is. Hi,
Here she
Tamron.
is.
So good to
Hi.
see you. Well,
Good to
you probably
see
know
you.
Tamron's coming off her second Emmy win. She has this great career. She's the host and executive producer of the popularly syndicated talk show Tamron Hall, which she's on a little break from, but is coming back real soon. She's had over 30 years of reporting. I can't believe it, Tamron, but it's right around that amount, right? And she's a new author, actually not so new because her hardcover came out last year, her paperback's on sale now, and she finished her second book. So I'm so excited to share Tamron with everyone and talk about books and how they get done and how they get put together and what inspires her and everything else.
It's so good to be here. Thank you.
So Tamron, the first question I wanted to ask you is, when did you know you wanted to write a novel? Like what inspired you to want to write a novel?
Oh, wow. As you mentioned, thank you for the introduction, Carrie. I've been a journalist for 30 years and the talk show was entering its second season. And like everyone, found myself locked into this very room, this very house, worried first about my family, my safety. And after you kind of get through that and we started to tape the show right here in this room, I suffered an awful bout of insomnia. And there were things that I could not control like the rest of us, but then there were things I could control. And one of the things I decided to do was step out of my comfort zone and start to write this character, this novel that really lived in me for many, many years. I was a general assignment reporter in Bryan College Station, Texas, which is where Texas A&M for perspective is. And then I ended up in Dallas, Fort Worth for 4 years and on to Chicago. And with each of those stops, there were stories, Carrie, there were people, I should say, because we call them stories, but this is about people. There were people and circumstances that I encountered that lived in me that I wanted to reconcile. And I wanted this character, for some reason, it popped in my head, this character would deal with and understand things that I was still trying to process. And thus Jordan Manning, named after Michael Jordan and Peyton Manning. I don't know how that, I think I was sleeping with ESPN on one night and it just popped in my head. And she was born really to, in many ways, trace my career and what I witnessed and what I experienced and end up this character.
I love Jordan Manning, and I love how as she's moving into her second book, she's reevaluating her life and she's reevaluating priorities. And I'm so interested in how all-encompassing her journalistic career is, and it doesn't really leave her a lot of time for other things. And I think that's such an interesting view of journalism. Have you found that in your past? Do you still find that?
Of course, I remember one of the first, tough talks that I had with a news director. One said, as I started out in a small market, this is a weed out class. Think of it like a college or a freshman course when there's 600 people in the class and all of a sudden there are 3 or 4 toward the end. He described entering the world of journalism in a small town as a weed out. I thought that was, wow, okay, what does that mean? And then much later, as I understood what that meant, being the first Black woman to co-anchor the Today Show, here I am, one of one in 62-year history of the show. I had someone say to me, this is a lifestyle. You don't turn your phone off. You don't go to sleep. This is a lifestyle. And I remember many times, especially during the years at the Today Show, where I would wake up, my phone, was ringing, which is something similar to Jordan in her story. And I was told there's a car downstairs to take you to the airport. Not, do you have plans? Who's in town? What do you have going on? Is it okay? No, the car is downstairs to take you to this breaking news thing that happened overnight. And that was and is my reality even still in some ways. And I think people don't fully hear or understand, because at the end of the day, the mantra is you are not the story. And no one wants to see a bunch of reporters all day complaining how they've been up since 3 a.m. tracking this story. But through Jordan, I'm able to tell not only my experience, but that of many, many other women that I work with along the way who struggled with, do I have a child? Do I have time for a child? Do I have time for love? Do I have time for myself? Do I have time to even go to the bathroom? And that's the reality of when I hosted a 4 a.m. morning show in Chicago with no ability to have a bathroom break because the bathroom was completely on the other side of the building. And I didn't have the luxury that the guys had, because my microphone was taped on my bra, which was taped on the Spanx, which was taped, and a guy could, run and dash in and out. And so that is actually why I think it must have been in my back of my mind when the first page is Jordan having to pee, because even that, when you're on live TV, can be impossible.
Right. I think that really comes across, like how all-encompassing the job is, but layered on that too is the cases that haunt you. And I think that's what makes it so compelling, is how much Jordan cares about them, how dedicated she is to figuring out what actually happened. And do you want to talk a little bit about the cases that really inspired you to write the first book, and possibly even the second?
Oh, and both in the series are inspired by real cases that I covered over the years. It's funny because I didn't even know that I was dealing with what I now process as a form. And I'm cautious in describing it this way, but I've thought a lot about it, and I know what I've experienced, and I know what has happened to me over the years. There's a PTSD, if I can use that, that certainly for me was real. And I'll go back to one of the cases that inspired the case that Jordan is covering. I was a reporter in Dallas, Fort Worth. It was the last week of my time there. My contract was up, and now I'm off to go to Chicago. And just like anyone else in your last week, you want the easy route. You're like, okay, what is the easiest thing that you can give me to do? Sure, state fair, no problem. Whatever it is, Jello challenge, I'll take it. I'll cover the kids' last day at school. But as it turned out, my last assignment was the disappearance. 2 children who live with their mother, who reported them missing in the wee hours of the morning. And I was with my cameraman, and this was, we had the 2-way in the old vehicles, and we had cell phones, we were tethered to the news desk, and we were listening to the scanner traffic of the police department. And we've been waiting to hear word about the young girl who had gone missing. Her brother had been found, and it was believed that this would be the big break in the case, because the brother was found. He obviously had been out in the woods and dumped by this individual, and he said the name, Kill Bobby Woods. And at that moment, police knew that it was the mother's boyfriend who had taken them. So now they have the name, they have the suspect, they kind of know where he hung out. And so they're piecing together what happened, because the mother had presented it as she woke up in the middle of the night and they were gone. But we were sitting on this bridge in this very small town, and over the police scanner, we heard they'd found her. And I thought, oh my God, they found her. You know, and I've been looking at her kindergarten pictures. I'd gone to her friends' homes to talk to parents, and she was in Girl Scouts. So I knew her, you know, I know this child. When you look at someone's kindergarten picture, we've all been there, you know that outfit you're picking out, your parents combing your hair, and they're saying, okay, look at the camera because we're going to give this to your aunts and your grandparents. This is a big moment. And I'm looking at that picture of her, and then we hear she's dead. And my camera guy, Chris Mathis, who's still a great friend of mine, he said, I got out of the car and I just walked. And he said, I look like a zombie. I don't even remember it. I just blacked out. I knew her. Wait a minute. I know her. I knew that my last story would be she was found, and it wasn't. And in that same year, 1997, I go to Chicago. First or second story that I covered, a young girl missing, found dead, same age. Different circumstances, different backgrounds. One was in rural Texas, one was in the heart of Chicago's urban neighborhood, but both left this mark on me prior to becoming a mom, you know, all of these things. And that continued to happen. I had a show called Deadline Crime for 6 seasons on investigation discovery. And I remember maybe my second season, it had to be the second season, where I felt, and I use this again, after thinking a lot about it, I was empowered enough to cry. I had to empower myself because I was supposed to go in the room and show no emotion and listen to people talk about losing the greatest thing that you can have, which is love, their child, their mother, their friend, their cousin. And I was supposed to just stand there and go about my day. And 20, 30 episodes a year of that, it's impossible to walk away.
Right.
So that became, you know, a part of what I wanted to put in the story, because I know that I'm not alone. I know that when you cover crime and you walk and you knock on someone's door and your hand is trembling and your assignment is to ask them to talk, how do you not feel something when it's a child, especially?
So the books in a certain way are catharsis for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But also observation. I mean, with this first book, we know that there is a serial killer potentially on the loose.
Mhm.
And we know that the victims appear to be all Black girls at this point. And when this book was released, it was at the exact time that Gabby Petito was the lead story. And everyone was asking this critical question that I've been asked for 30 years. Why is she the lead, which she deserves, right? Every parent, Gabby Petito deserved to be the lead and deserved to have her family have justice, as my family still waits for justice in the death of my sister. But the natural question any other parent would ask is, why didn't my child's story become a news story? Why did I have to call Crime Stoppers 500 times and get the voicemail? Yeah, and so that became a part of the conversation, but the book was written and done, as you know, Carrie, well
Yeah,
before.
it was done. So you were giving a voice to an underserved community too.
Yeah, I believe, you know, I think that I don't know if I was giving voice, because I do believe that these parents have fought tirelessly in many, many
Right.
ways to ensure they are heard and their children are not forgotten. I think I was able to give some perspective from this reporter, Jordan Manning, of what
Right.
that looks and feels like, right? You know, you walk in a room and a parent is saying, the media is ignoring me, and I am the media. It's hard to say, you're right. But Jordan is having that conversation that I wish, by the way, at 27, 37, I was able to have. With a parent to say, you know, it's not your imagination. It's not. We're only now having that open conversation. When I first got in the business in 1992, I guess, that wasn't an open conversation. A lot of people were not validating family members of not just people of color, but LGBTQ plus. all of that wasn't, your child goes missing and you say
Right.
to the police officer, my child is gay. Oh, they ran away. Oh, they probably, so it's not just people of color who felt dismissed by the system. It's anyone that was not seen as the girl or boy next door. And what does that often mean? That means economics, that means race, that means a lot of things. And we've seen it across the board.
I think that what impresses me most about you is the passion that you put into everything that you do. Like how passionately you care about your books, how passionately you care about your career, your family, everything. I mean, it's very impressive. And I think that you also do such a great job in creating different characters in these books and having them play off each other. And I'm so impressed of the way that you went from book one and really took it up a notch in book two. Like we really see Jordan growing and becoming even more of her own woman. And I just love that. And of course, that's not a question. I'm just
Thank
sitting
you.
here, I enjoy working with you so much. And I'm excited to see, this second book come out. And we tweaked the cover a little bit, as people can see beside you. And now we're actually, full on into the next book. Oh, I'm so glad that you pulled this up. Thank you. It looks so great, and we had such great reviews for this book, and I want to press it into everyone's hand. As you might or might not know, I have like a little library outside my house, and I put copies of all my favorite books that I've worked on, and this one has disappeared already. So I'm going to have to get some more copies and put them out there. But I think that Jordan Manning's inspiring, and I love her. But I'm wondering how much of you is her, and what's different? Oh, here are these wonderful reviews. Look at that, star reviews for our first book. It's amazing.
Oh, wow. It's crazy. It is funny because originally I saw her certainly as my alter ego, but then as I started to write the journey and write this novel, she became her own person, really, though, inspired by other women in the business from all backgrounds, right? From all experiences. And I thought about, conversations I had with Paula Zahn. We both did shows on investigation discovery, and we just, oh my gosh, we talk about some of the things that we cover. And so Jordan became this hybrid, because to be me wasn't enough, because at that age I was not that bold. I didn't want to look at her decisions through hindsight, right? I didn't want to say, oh gosh, what I know now, I would have done that, because I didn't do those things at her age for many reasons, most of which I know that we all understand as women in the workplace, that has not always been welcoming, and it still is not in many, many ways. And so for me, I felt it was important for her to have these layers of other women that I watched work hard in this business and brought heart to the stories they were covering in ways I think viewers did not understand, or don't still to this day understand. And that's not to say viewers are doing anything wrong. When you're doing a good job, you hide it. You hide that you were crying right after the live shot. I got in the business pre-Instagram, pre-Twitter. So you didn't leave and tweet, I cried all night in 140 characters. You'd go home and grab a glass of wine, meet a friend after for drinks, call your family member, and you'd vent and express sadness, frustration, whatever, with family members. And that's what we see in Jordan. And that's what I saw many, many times over with other journalists in the business who were not on Twitter venting. And there's nothing wrong with that either, but we didn't have that then.
But I do love how you're on Instagram now, and how you get on, and how you talk about the book and everything. I think that's fun. And I think you do have an amazing connection with your audience. And, because of the pandemic, you weren't able to really tour and meet people, but we just did this really cool thing. And I wonder if you want to talk about it at all. About the audio.
Oh, yes. I'm like, which cool thing, Carrie? I have to give William Morrow and Carrie so much credit because of the book. it is a unique novel for a journalist, for a Black female journalist. And when we entered this world, I didn't realize how few are written from this perspective. So we wanted to think out of the box and connect the readers to me. And so I said to Carrie, can I read some of the chapters of the book? I really want to do this. I did not know my voice was quite as distinct as it is until one day I think it was in Target, and I was on the phone, and this woman said, "Is that you, Tamron?" from the rack over. So I was like, "Oh, okay." I guess my Texas twang and a little mix of everything else that I've experienced in life has a distinct sound. And so I really wanted to give something special and share something. It's not a gift, it's sharing something special with the readers, and read a chapter of the second book in the series, which a couple of things I'll tell you, and Carrie, you know this is important. Jordan Manning is a journalist who is a Black woman, but at the core of everything she is, she's a human being. And she is faced with something that we all face in our lives at some point in time. And that's the moral compass of what is right and wrong. And are we going to speak up for it in small ways, in large ways, every day in our lives? And she's a journalist at that point. And the second case that she is pulled into, and I say pulled into, and when you read it, you'll understand, happens to be a missing mom who is white, who's from Indiana, who's very different from her in the sense, Jordan's not married. Jordan's ideal of the perfect life right now is not marriage, a child, and a suburban lifestyle. And now she is brought into a case involving a woman very different from her. Is she going to judge her? Will she have the same empathy that for this woman that she did with Macy, who was a little Black girl who she saw herself in? Will she fight to find the answers in the same way she did with Macy? And what we see, without giving too much away, she ends up being more reckless to find justice. She puts more on the line for this woman in so many ways than she did for Macy. And the question is why? And I think that's a big deal.
Yeah. I think she's growing as a character. So that's why, really.
And she also understands her role as a journalist is to root for everyone, to fight for everyone, not just the people you identify with. And
right.
That goes back to the core of the first book of who gets to be the lead when you're missing, right? We heard during the Gabby Petito case where people said, why does this keep happening? And over the answer was, well, news directors are largely men, largely white, and they see their daughters in the missing person. That's not a good enough answer. You have to see your family in every person, even when the exterior, even when the personal choices don't match those you are used to. And so here Jordan is bonding now and putting a lot on the line to figure out what's really happened to this woman. Is she missing? Did she run away? What happened to her? Right. And it takes Jordan, it takes a lot of personal sacrifice for her to do that.
Yeah, it does. I just want to say that you recorded the first chapter of the next book, as yet untitled. We'll have a title soon, or maybe one of the librarians will come up with a fantastic title.
Carrie knows a lot of things come to me in these weird little dreams at night. And so as the Wicked Watch, I was just thinking, and I remember, I guess it was maybe the Ted Bundy series that was on Netflix. I don't know, it was some series. And the notion that serial killers will return to the scene of the crime. Well, when you're on TV, you often wonder, are they watching? Are the wicked watching? And at any point, can any of those people watching become wicked? And I thought also about it. I think I shared this with you, Carrie, right? I was at Dallas Fort Worth reporting, I don't know, it's in my early 30s, I think, because I left there when I was 37, I think. And there was a man barricaded in his trailer in the middle of nowhere. And he killed a couple of people. Now he's hiding out. We were all out in this middle of the night, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and they're trying to negotiate and he's not talking. The next morning, 6 a.m., we're getting ready to do live shots because this guy's still in there. And the police said, you guys can't because he may be watching. And we don't want him to know where our people are because they were coming in to close in. And it turned out he'd already killed himself hours prior. So we were out there for no reason and they thought they were negotiating. So that's a whole other issue. But they worried he was watching. And so the wicked in all of our lives can be
Right.
watching without us knowing.
And also, it's all, the word watch is all about journalism. So,
Yeah.
maybe we'll have words that indicate that in
Yeah,
the next
that's what
book
we're looking
too.
for.
That would be really fun. You know what? Honestly, somebody seems to be printing behind me here. And so I'm wondering if you should mute me and maybe take some of the questions from librarians that are happening.
Of course, I'd love that.
That was great, Carrie. Thank you so much. It's always interesting to, see the dynamic between author and editor and how the project evolves. Tamron, I thank you so much for doing this because the book has been out for a year to great acclaim with those wonderful quotes that just keep coming in too. And it's just such, Lainey and I have been talking about this character, and we were saying the other day how we loved how you made her imperfect, which made her so relatable and accessible. Lainey, what was the example that you were using when we were talking about how she didn't say one thing that she should have said to the first person that she interviewed at the very beginning of the story? And just things that she thought later on, like, oh, why did I do that? And there's something about that character being relatable, not being the superhero, but being just a strong, powerful, brilliant, brave character without being, without wearing the cape and the mask. It doesn't need all that because she's a human being at the end, as you say, and so we both were saying how much we love many aspects of the book, but that part of the character, I think, I don't even know if you were conscientious of doing that, but
I don't know. Carrie was so phenomenal in helping to guide me with this character. And as I said, this was all new territory for me. And in life, I've learned, use your weapon. What is your weapon? And I mean that in a positive way. What is your weapon? And I hope, and I've always wanted my weapon to be my heart, in the sense that I could feel, and I am a crier, and that's my weapon because I'm able to release that, and I'm able to. Carrie talked about me juggling many, many things. I think it's because I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I am the quickest to say, "Oh my God, I'm crying," or and I wanted Jordan's weapon to be her heart. And I wanted her to use it much earlier in her career than I learned to. As I talked about with Deadline Crime, I remember a father coming in. I think one of the breaking points for me, and it's similar to Jordan, when she sits down with Pamela and they have this first interaction, father of a young girl in Minnesota, she'd taken her own life. She was a brilliant college student. She'd gone into a chat room and thought that she was friends with someone she'd never met who was giving her deadly advice. She was suicidal, and she said, I want to take my life. I want to take my life. And she's communicating in some chat room. The person encourages her to take her life, and she did. And what unfolded ended up being a landmark case in Minnesota. It actually went to the Supreme Court. It was a man pretending to be a nurse. He was a father behind the computer, encouraging people around the world to commit suicide. He would go into chat rooms. And so he said, well, I didn't do it. I told them to do it. And so this became a big case on how, what is manslaughter? How accountable are you for intel? And now we've seen it a couple of times since, but this was the very first case. And her father walked in the room, and I saw a pain that I will never forget. And before he could sit down, we both were just sobbing, and we had to reset. It probably took a half hour to get us together. And I felt that when he saw me, he knew that I saw him, that I wasn't reporting on him, that I was there for him. And it just released this pain. And I received it. And we were both, had never met before. And within an instant, it was this connection of great grief. But he knew I understood the grief, and that I understood him, and I saw him, and I saw her, and I saw what their family had experienced. And I was grateful to be trusted that much.
That's that is such a responsibility.
Yes.
You know, I mean, when Jordan speaks to the dead girl's mother, and she says, "When was I can't remember exactly what she said, but when was the last time you saw her?" And she's just raw. And then you turn to your cameraman and you're like, "What did I say?" Well, I keep thinking it's you, but Jordan says, "What did I say? What did I do?" What, and it's because she cares so much, She
do you sit there? And that was inspired by this moment with the case with Deadline Crime, because it's that, do I hug? Do I turn the camera off? There are some people push in, they're crying, and you're in your mind thinking, no, I don't, stop this, stop, and what do you do? Do you reach out? There was a point, I used to reach out and touch someone's knee. Then I thought, that is so, someone is in front of you, laying their soul to bear after grief. And I felt like touching the knee wasn't enough. And then you want to jump up in the mic, and now you're tethered to the mic. And so do you hug? And is that professional? Is that professional behavior? And that's what Jordan is faced with in this book. And she continues to face, what is the job, right? And is it the job that she wants? Because if that's the job, if I'm supposed to sit there and watch you, or if she's supposed to sit there and watch you cry and be in pain and not help, like, is that the job? And do you really want to do this, Jordan?
Or even, the optics, like when the mother wants to speak, she's so upset, and they're like, you shouldn't have done that. It's like, no, they wanted to. It's like, I can't win. I don't know what you want from me.
You can't win. And even, the diner scene, which is one that I love very much, when Jordan is there and she is trying to work her sources and what it takes to work sources, and really stroking egos, and
oh yeah, right,
smiling away, and while you are utterly repulsed by someone who could potentially, though, give you what you need, which is something significant in the case. That happens all the time. Sources, people visualize that, the source is someone maybe anonymous on an email, or a decent person who maybe doesn't want to come forward and tell you. Many times it's from pretty bad people. Sources are most of the time in crime a bad person. That's been my experience.
I think that this book has touched as many nerves as it has in a positive way, because, again, going back to the character being so relatable, frankly. I mean, I know that when I watch something in an interview with somebody who is upset, who's gone through something horrible and lost somebody that they love, I can't get that when somebody is just looking at them, when the interview is just looking at them. I think that's why that's one of the many reasons, because this is such a well-written book, and you're going through it and you're trying to figure out who is at the bottom of this. So there's so many layers to this book, because they're really beautifully developed characters, but they're so authentic. And I think, and she's just such a likable character. I don't know, you pull for her because she's warts and all. She's wearing her $200 fancy shoes, and she's in the mud, but she's doing what she's got to do. I don't know, it's just
I wanted her to have those. I mean, we talk, Carrie and I talk, and we, as she grows and the readers grow with her and get to know her even more, I don't want every decision made to be one that's applauded. Meaning, I wanted those "what are you thinking, Jordan" moments. Because isn't that what we do with friends? I mean, you're not a friend if you agree all the time.
Right,
You are a yes man or a yes woman. You want the friend who doesn't always agree with you. And Jordan makes decisions that she believes are obviously right at that time. But that said, we're reading it, and maybe through the tea leaves, we recognize that that was not smart, or why are you doing that? And I want more of that, with her always being front of mind for me, a person that even when you don't agree with the decision, you always like her because you know her heart. And I think we all, the best of the friends that we all have in our lives, right? Those are people, because at the end of the day, say, I know your heart. I didn't like what you said. I didn't like how you approached me. I didn't like what you did, or that was dumb. And why did you date that person when I told you that you shouldn't? But their heart is in the right place. And that's one of my favorite, phrases. When well, their heart was in the right place. I actually like that a lot because it speaks volumes.
Well, I think you're gonna have her going on for years and years, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yay.
Are you already cooking up the next one in your head? Do you
Oh
know where it's
gosh,
going?
number 3, I have some ideas. What I did not realize though in this process, I've shared with you, Virginia, Laney, I was a Nancy Drew kid. I had the box set under my bed, and that was my thing, at the dusty little underneath. So I'm probably responsible for a lot of librarians back then, before all of the technical stuff. Where's that box set? Oh, it's under Tamron Hall's bed, or me marking up things. But I didn't realize, to move forward, how much of this one I had to put behind me. So even now, when there are very specific things that are referenced, I have to dig deep, because I am so now in this second book of where they are. And I think that's very similar, honestly, to that's very similar to what I've done as a reporter. To move forward, to keep going, you forget. You do. And it's impossible for me to remember every crime that I've ever covered, which makes me so mad at myself, because I should, but you can't. And it's embarrassing when, someone says, oh, remember you covered this thing in my neighborhood? And what? I don't even remember. But then there are others that rise, for whatever reason, to this part of your journey that become the fiber and the texture of the rest of your life. And those were the 2 cases that inspired this. The second book, a case out of Oklahoma, a young woman and her husband financially strapped, and made some very tragic decisions regarding how they would make the money for her, or for them to pay the bills. And it led them to this world on Craigslist, where she became a sex worker on Craigslist, with her husband helping her out in this process. And she answered the wrong email, and it turned into one of the scariest stories, one of the most horrific stories that I've ever covered. And this inspired, in some ways, the next case, as well as a husband's betrayal in a case that I covered. I believe it was season 1, Deadline Crime. He wanted out of the marriage, and as we always ask, why can't you just call a divorce attorney? He murdered her, and I'll never forget. I remember a detective, never heard this phrase before, but it's common in the crime world. He made a wife killing kit, and that is tarp, a shovel, and lime. And they found the receipt at a Walmart that he traveled from their home state to where she was to purchase it. And when the detective in charge found the credit card that the man had used, and he saw the receipt, he said he instantly knew it was a wife killing kit. And that's what the guys in the field refer to that as, because it's so commonly used.
That's horrific.
That is horrific.
It is.
Well, we look forward to seeing what happens next with Jordan Manning.
Yeah.
We have questions for you.
You.
And what you've just said sort of might lead into the first question, Lainey. Do you want to ask that one?
The teaching one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that you were saying a lot about like what is the job and what empathy comes into it. So this would be good. Some Sylvia asked, have you or would you consider teaching in the future?
I have considered, and I part of the last chapter, if you will, of my career, in addition to keeping Jordan alive, I'm currently on the board of trustees at Temple University, and I would love to layer in a class about this very topic. Nothing, I took law and ethics, I took nothing prepares you for this type of, nothing prepares you for this side of journalism. And there was no class available. There was no elective on what to do when you walk up on a body and the wife of the victim is 3 feet away from you. And I've had that happen. And I think that there's something there, and I want to tailor that class. But yes, absolutely. It's front of mind. It is on my list because it is not, to my knowledge, in any curriculum currently in journalism schools across the country. And I'd like to create something.
Okay, let's see. Another question. Casey Davis said, being publicly sensitive and honest can always backfire. And then she gave the example of Chrissy Teigen talking about her miscarriage. Do you find today's audience, sorry, my thing went away. Okay, do you find today's audience tougher or more accepting of your emotional response to a story?
I think more accepting than I ever imagined. We have a joke with the show that I do, my talk show. It's called Tamron Tears. I have like a guy, his name is Spider, that's his nickname. He's ready on the side of the set with tissues because I cry. But I cried everything. Tears of joy, tears of surprise. I'm a crier, but I do believe that we wear so many masks in our lives and we layer and layer them that people are, in my opinion, more willing than ever to enjoy authenticity. Because if you allow me to be myself and I allow you to be yourself, then we are really going to get to know each other. So for me, my experience has been that people are open to it because that's kind of where we're meeting people where they are. And I believe that's where we are right now after going through so much. And I just want to be myself.
Absolutely. I think that's the touchstone right there. Just be yourself. And you're right. I mean, we have been through so much. And I think, as you said before, there's power. I think that's the word you use, Tamron, power and allowing yourself to cry.
Yeah, it is. And the thing about, how many filters there are. Everything is now designed for you to filter out your reality. I was telling my husband, we were driving yesterday, and I said, gosh, I remember when everyone just had the radio AM and FM. We'd all listen to the same music. And so I would know every pop. So, it was because of Olivia Newton-John passing away. And I'd had the pleasure of interviewing her many times. And in fact, my very first self-exam was because I interviewed Olivia Newton-John. And I think I was late 20s, early 30s. And she said, do a breast self-exam. She was on, this is when she was first had come out publicly with her first bout of breast cancer. And she kept saying, women, you have to do self-exams. And I can laugh about it. But it was so, there's Olivia Newton-John. And she's like, okay, lean back. And you're going to like, oh my God, Olivia Newton-John is walking me through a breast exam on national TV. But her bravery was just so inspiring. I reflected though, seeing Grease for the first time and listening to music. And it seemed that we were all on this collective journey. And now we curate and tailor our lives so individually that you don't have that communal spirit anymore. You can turn on a song and one person might know it. And when I listen to a different station on my Spotify, we all have playlists of life. That's a better way to put it. I feel like we've curated and playlists our lives so down to this narrow scope that it's hard to have collective experiences. And so that for me has been a big part of wanting to be myself more authentically. And because I do know at the end of the day, we have those things in common, which is we want the best life for ourselves, our families, and we want, when we're faced with a critical decision like Jordan, that we always do the right thing for others.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we have a couple more questions, Amy.
Dickie asked, with such a busy career, how do you find time to write novels too?
Well, I know, right? So the first novel, obviously, as I said, like everyone else watching, I was locked in, and that gave me time. And I've always been an early riser. I've been in morning TV for many, many years. So I naturally wake up at 4:30, 5:30, naturally. I know it's terrible. And my son does the same, which made it even worse. I'm like, I gave him a curse. But I would write late at night. I script my show usually starting around 5 a.m. So around midnight, I would start to just pluck away. I used a lot of voice recordings, which Carrie knows was easier for me, not just because I have these long Cardi B nails, but I work with Sean Taylor and Carrie, just arm in arm, really, and getting advice. And I just told the story in this phone, and I keep my phone along at my bed, and I wake up and, okay, now, all right, that's okay. That makes sense when she goes here. And it's all in this phone. And I'd send the files to Sean, and she'd type it out, and then we'd reread it and look over. The process is more streamlined now, but the scenarios are so, I don't know why, and I wish I could give you a much more thoughtful answer, but so much of this story was so easy to find because it's like Dorothy Gale. It's been there all along, which is my favorite movie, The Wizard of Oz. And I know it's weird to talk about crime that way, but it was always there, and it just kind of spilled out. And my son at that time, he wasn't 3. Now it's going to get harder to write these novels because I have a 3-year-old who is like, Mommy, what's this? And he was reading the other day, AST. I'm like, okay, thank you. I'll take my book back.
I will say that that Tamron turned this book in early. Like, that's the sign of a journalist author. Being early turning.
Yeah, well, I'm used to deadlines, and I'm used to deadlines. I know that, and that's a big part of what we talk about in both of the books. My show starts at 10 a.m. live Eastern time in New York. It airs later in other markets, tape it in New York, Philly, Boston, Baltimore, the Eastern Seaboard. It's live. If I don't walk out there at 10 Eastern, that chair will be empty and it will be live. So I am used to deadlines where you don't get, I'm late for all dinner reservations, and my friends are annoyed by that because they say to me, how is it that you are never late for your show, but you're late for every reservation that we have? I think that's, everyone has a junk drawer. That's my life junk drawer, which is being late for reservations. But yeah, I'm very happy about it. I was very happy to get Carrie's feedback already for book number 2. Last night, I looked at her feedback again. I put my voice notes in, and I meet with Sean Taylor tomorrow. We finesse some of the feedback we got from Carrie, and we're there. We just need a title.
Yeah, we just need the title.
That's where the librarians can come in.
Yes, please.
So there was one question from Amy White, and then I think we'll probably wrap it up. But she says it's such a great first book. She wanted to know if there were any other books that you started and stopped, or, we know that this process is, different for everybody. But
yeah, absolutely. Well, originally there was a conversation about a memoir because I had gone through a very public loss of a job at a certain age. I was 48, and then I got pregnant with my one and only son. And so there was talk about a memoir, and I thought, I can't write a memoir. There's still too many people alive that I need to write the truth about. So there's that. But and then I thought a mini memoir, which we are still talking about at this point, which is just basically from the moment I was let go at the Today Show to the moment of building this talk show and the next chapter as a woman over the age of 45. And so we're really looking at the components of that second act, if you will, which I never thought about it as a second act, but the second act of my life as a mom, as now an author and a talk show host. And what was that like, those critical 36 months? So I may be working on that mini memoir, and I love children's books. And I think that's also the byproduct of reading children's books all day long. And having, I think, 16 copies of Goodnight Moon, because my son is obsessed and has been, and won't let it out of his hands, and copies end up lost and found and everything. But I think something in the children's space I would love to create from my heart, going back again to everything that I am right now. I hope is led by that, and my heart is obviously with that kid and sitting there and reading with him and enjoying that. So it's kind of directed me. But prior to, it was a memoir, which I'm not ready for.
It's very interesting, really, when you think about it. It just struck me that obviously you're very maternal, and Jordan is maternal in a way, I think, because she cares so much, and so there's so much. Your experience in journalism and who you are inherently just comes through in this book and with this character. It's a little bit of everything. It's a beautiful profile of a person who's trying to do right, and it's a great page turner because you're trying to figure out what's happened here, and you're doing right, and you're giving people their voices, everybody their voices.
Thank you. And I appreciate that very much. And even going to the point of maternal, I had Moses at 48, but I believe when someone says, well, I'm not maternal, I am maternal, I think we all are maternal in the sense that we all have the ability to care for and grow something that is not us. My stepfather became the dad God meant for me to have. We share no DNA. We share no bloodline, but he cared for me. And prior to Moses, I've had many, many children that I mentor, that I've taken under my wing, and they are my kids before my actual child. And two of them cried when I said I was pregnant. They're like, no, what happens to us? Like, nothing, you're still fine, And so for me, maternal goes back to, it's not connected to the truest form of a child coming from your body. To me, at any point, we have the ability to care for something as a mother would, even without being a mom or the mother of that thing. So I see Jordan being that person. And that's why the second book in the series is so interesting, because we do go into that womanhood versus motherhood and what that all even means in the first place.
Cannot wait. Yeah. Carrie, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you, Tamron.
Thank you, Tamron.
This was a great hour. Thank you so much.
This has been just absolutely wonderful to see the relationship between author and editor, and to remind people the paperback is just out now. This is such a great book. This is such a great character. So exciting that the new book will be out this time next year. Tamron, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with everybody today about your book and the process. We so appreciate you and your wonderful writing.
I'm smiling ear to ear because I'm so grateful for every kind word, every warm smile that you've given me, every nod of encouragement. It all matters. And I just thank the entire community of book lovers that you've assembled for even thinking enough of me to consider reading it. And I have a friend just today who was in the Boston Logan Airport. He sent me a picture of the book in the airport bookstore, and I just started to cry. So it means the world to me, and celebrate not just myself, but other authors, because we all need it and we all appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll take good care, everyone. Tamron, Carrie, Lainey, librarians, thanks so much. Be well. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.